They have bought a category that they have never bought before, switch to brand.
It's really a good opportunity to dive in, to embrace the technology.
That is a festival, it's like a season.
At midnight, New Year's Eve, purchasing doesn't stop.
Hi everyone, I'm Dhruv Vora, the Managing Director for the SMB Group for Meta in Asia Pacific.
Hi everyone, my name is Tue Kvist Thomassen. I'm CEO of Decision Lab.
With TED just around the corner, welcome to TED Talk, Inside Out, a closer look at how Vietnamese consumers are reshaping the way they shop for Lunar New Year.
At last TED, 54% said that they felt less financially secure during the holiday period. And during this year, we've been tracking the consumer confidence every month, and it has been a bumpy road, and actually it has been getting worse. But we see over the past 3 to 4 months, things are actually getting better. And our prediction is that this TED is going to be a bit better than previous year, and people will actually feel a little bit more financially secure. But we are still, of course, in a difficult situation financially as well. And therefore, what I find quite interesting here is for consumers to listen to the advice from other consumers in our study on how to cope during this TED. And recommendation to basically shop early, because you don't want to compromise on quality, you don't want to compromise on the experience. So what you do is you plan better. You shop before things get too expensive. You shop when you can find maybe good online discounts, and that's one of the ways to cope.
Right, and the other way to cope is just depend on online channels for research. What we found is that folks during TED buy a product they've never bought before, they've bought a category that they've never bought before, switch to brand. So it's such an important channel to come to and do your research. In fact, 34% of shoppers move online to manage costs, compare options, and figure out what they like you said, sometimes a little bit early as well. It shows that SMB should not just push discounts, but use this as an opportunity for a well-tied story to be able to help the consumer make decisions. And if they're able to do that, I'm pretty sure this TED is going to be way better than any other.
And I think, last year was disappointing for a lot of businesses, right? And they didn't get the sales that they expected. Alcohol consumption was quite a bit down as well. But in general, it's important to remember that TED is a really, really important commercial opportunity in Vietnam. So people are getting their 13th salary, maybe bonuses on top, and we can see on average people are spending an extra salary during this period. So it is really also a celebration for retailers and for businesses. And one thing that's really important to understand is that gifting is still central, right? So you want to make sure you purchase the right quality. You don't want to compromise on value. So this is the time to be creative, to come up with offerings for consumer that makes this a very, very meaningful experience.
Right, and as you mentioned, I don't think while folks look for discounts and deals, the true emotion of TED has not gone away. It is so important, and that's why it's good also to get back to basics and make sure that you have a nice storytelling creative platform to be able to win both wallets and hearts.
Yeah, so I think the thing that's very important to understand when you start planning your campaigns for TED is fully to understand the hybrid shopping journey. There's a lot of focus in Vietnam on the last click, and it sometimes create a bit of a bias in terms of how you manage and run your campaigns. Just to explain it a bit of how it works, if you imagine your own journey, you see a product maybe on Instagram, maybe someone you are following, or maybe someone reach out to you on WhatsApp to share a new product or service or an experience. And then you go through the journey. You might, if it's a bigger purchase, want to find out where can you get the best price, go through different steps until you finally purchase a product, either it could be online or offline, of course. So this is how we all shop. And I think the good news for Meta, right, is that across categories, we see that around 2/3 of the discovery of products actually happens within the Meta's family of products. So Meta's platforms are typically a very good place to be inspired, to discover something, to meet new trends. And actually, one of the things we'll be talking more about on this topic around TED is around health of beauty, where it's actually 88% of the discovery that happens within the Meta family of products.
Yeah, and it's not just discovery and awareness. Actually, for a bunch of categories, especially health and beauty, e-commerce, FMCG, folks actually come back even in the consideration phase. And like you said, the hybrid journey these days is, omni-channel has evolved to hybrid. Earlier, if I had to buy a phone, I had a few options, but now I can either go online, I can go offline, I can go to a partner store, I can go to a partner offline store. And then business messaging plays a really important role too. So social doesn't just stop at the first entry point engagement, it actually sustains the journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we look into our data, we can see that out of the transactions through last year's TED, then we had 44% state that they purchased on e-commerce. We have 22% that says this was in brick and mortar retail, and then just 16% who makes the final purchase on social, which of course doesn't mean they haven't been through a discovery phase or comparing products or things like that. Personally, I think the social part is my favorite. One of the things I love about shopping in Vietnam is the wealth of SMEs in this country. You have a lot of cool new shops. You have a lot of people who are starting up new areas. And I like the fact that all of them are on Facebook or maybe have a cool Instagram page where they show off their new products. And then I will contact them on Messenger or other ways. And you can easily, with the spread of QR payments in Vietnam, easily access the payments and get your product delivered. And I think just to add a note to that, when it comes to TED, it's very much about gifts. So I find it really interesting to also customize it, right? So if you want that personal touch, there are a lot in the SME space that are willing to go that extra mile for customers. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more on the social side to make sure we also support some of the SMEs through this period.
Yeah, this is just such an exciting market for SMEs. Like, it's just a pleasure to be in Vietnam. It's so innovative. I think people generally are tech savvy. And like you mentioned, I think messaging is this new emerging channel. And actually the world is learning from Vietnam on how to use business messaging as a channel. And just to summarize, like you said, like for some categories, there's awareness on social, and some others like e-commerce, there's also conversion. But this is this hybrid omni-channel integrated journey that consumers are taking. And in Vietnam, I think messaging is a crucial channel to build trust, connect with customers, facilitate sales. Businesses should, consult and rely on all of these channels and all of these touch points instead of relying on one.
Yeah, so our research confirms that 70% of TED shoppers prefer to watch videos to learn and share about products. And this is because discovery phase leans very heavily on video content. And I think everyone experiences, how much we consume short form video, and also how well connected it is to advertising. And the interesting thing is also, the source of these videos. So of course, businesses can put out short form videos in advertising as well. But we see actually virtually everyone in Vietnam are following online personality. And again, we need to remember what is TED about. You want to create a perfect TED for your friends and family. You want to buy the perfect gift. And therefore, inspiration is really, really important. So in the case of TED, it's important to create collaborations with influencers in Vietnam that can help elevate the credibility of your product, but also can help bring some personality to it.
Yeah, look, short form videos are just such an amazing hook and entry point. And like you said, TED is about family and social events. It's also an entry point for social conversations. And from there, you can actually take engagement forward, especially if you can make that more interactive. Live shopping, for example, is an amazing way to drive awareness and conversion in just one consistent session. So yeah, as you said, during TED, even we've seen 71% say live shopping influence their decision much higher than the rest of the year. And creators and influencers play a big role in making this come to life.
And then the research shows, don't forget about business messaging. So 62% are saying that business messaging is even more important during TED. And this is because this is how you follow up. This is how you inquire more about the products, maybe get their customization, things like that. Maybe in some case in Vietnam, negotiate a better price. So business messaging is always a very important component adding on to the shopping experience.
Yeah, and we just spoke about integrated channels, but then the marketing strategy also needs to be very integrated. So short form video dominates discovery, but engagement is what actually drives results towards the end. And especially for SMBs, they win when they connect these dots: short video for discovery, live stream for acceleration, and then business messaging for closing, just like you said.
So the interesting thing is that consumer demand is limited to just before TED. When we looked at the process of purchasing products across different categories, we see that there is one job you have to do pre-TED, and that is to build awareness and also, of course, trigger early conversions, all those people who are out shopping pre-TED. But during TED, there's actually also quite a lot of consumption, and there the job is really to stay top of mind. And then post-TED, interestingly enough, there's quite a lot of spending as well. So this is really the period where you can retarget and you can capture delayed purchases. And I think a lot of businesses are missing this point. They turn off the ads when TED is over. But really, there is a whole period after TED where you can actually, and in many categories, it might even be the most important occasion for you to reap the sales.
Exactly. It's just not one seasonal peak moment. That is a festival. It's like a season. And it depends on vertical and product, on what works before, what works after. I would suggest people test it. But for services, for example, think beauty consultations or medical consultations, wellness, spas. The peak is actually on or during the TED time. But for other things, such as products, especially where folks want to make the right, prudent financial decision, the research starts much earlier. And then the purchase could happen even after TED via retargeting. The right strategy is to map product versus service dynamics. For product, balance awareness early and retarget post-holiday, while for services, maximize presence during TED.
So I think this was really one of the interesting findings during the study, because at midnight, New Year's Eve, purchasing doesn't stop. And I think the first important thing to keep in mind is that in Vietnam, we are giving money. And you get lucky money, and in many occasions it's actually quite a lot of money. It's certain demographics that receive this, typically unmarried, typically younger, and so they will be getting quite a lot of money that they will be able to spend afterwards. Then for others who had to pay for the party, it might be a little bit more sour period, right? Afterwards, there's also another interesting finding. This is that you have this recover recharge period. So I think it both comes from that people need to get ready to get back to work. They have maybe been eating a little bit too much, probably drinking a little bit too much, and they need to get back. So I think that's what is driving a lot of the post-TED purchases in services. That you really, in health and beauty and a lot of these categories, it's actually after TED that people they start spending more. And I think in my home country, that was always after New Year. All the gyms would be having their heydays because they would sell these annual subscriptions that no one would use, but it was always the to-do after New Year. So really, especially in some of the categories, focus on this recover recharge period and grab the consumers that are shopping for.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I agree. Like even in other festivals, what we've noticed is once it finishes, there's a little bit of FOMO, and people want to spend a little bit more if they've missed out on something and actually spend the gifts of, like you said, folks get money during TED. I think I've missed the boat on getting the money that younger people get, but I wish I was here in my earlier days to spend that money. So products, they require early seeding, but post-TED retargeting and services need to dominate during TED. It's not pre or during. I think it's more of an integrated journey. So folks should test and be always on and not just switch on and off.
It's important to remember there is a really, really high adoption of AI tools in Vietnam. So starting to use AI is both about, supporting your business, but you also need to understand that compared to TED last year, consumer journeys have changed, because this year people will be using their AI tools for inspiration, for planning their purchases, etc. So it's really important to get started with this.
Yeah, AI is really an enabler, and we've got to think about it like that. I was reading the other day, and as they say, your job will not be taken away by AI, but someone who knows how to use AI to optimize things better. For example, for us, our ads product, because of AI, are much better. They enable you to find audiences at the right time, the right place, and enable our ads engine to show the right message. In fact, ROAS for advertisers that have used AI has improved significantly over time. So really, it isn't a cost factor. It should be used as an enabler. For example, for customer service or for where people use chatbots, it can enable you to do 24/7 responses and no extra cost, not hiring any extra people. So we have to embrace AI and the efficiency that it brings and reduce some of the skepticism around the additional cost, because actually it's going to add both the top line and bottom line.
I know a lot of smaller businesses where they feel they are lagging behind. The business owner know that he should have been investing a bit more in AI, understanding a bit more, but they're just not there yet. And I think the interesting thing is around TED, you have a shortage of labor, right? You can't fulfill all the orders, or it's extremely expensive to pay people to get extra staff in. So this is really, if there's one time where you should try new AI tools, it is really for TED, because this is the time where you can then use these tools. They can help your existing staff. They will be happy. They can maybe go home a little bit earlier and party with their friends and family. So it's really a good opportunity to dive in, to embrace the technology. And I think what that can end up with is that TED will really be the time where you then learn things then you can apply in your business for the rest of the year. So use this to experiment. Use this period really to get ahead.
Yeah, and especially for SMBs, they just make AI makes SMBs smarter, more nimble, and more efficient. You think about it, if you were a large advertiser, you have so many resources, SMBs actually don't. So to your point, it's an even greater opportunity for SMBs to embrace AI because it helps them make a democracy out of all the resources that are available. With AI, they can actually start competing with even large businesses just because AI is the same for everyone. It's as efficient and as effective for everyone. And if you can use something like TED to test it out and then make it part of your business strategy, you can actually compete at a much higher level.
Yeah, so now the viewers have been listening to two foreigners talking about what is maybe one of the most sacred Vietnamese traditions around TED. But I think this outside point of view has hopefully lent some new inspiration to how you can execute TED even better this year. I think from my point of view, the most important thing is to capture the consumer behavior, capture some of the insights that we have shared. You can understand more by reading the report, and then choose the right tools. And I know you have a few things to say about that.
Yeah, look, the first thing I'll say, just listening to you and learning also from your insights and the great research that's just been published, I feel that folks should be excited about TED this time. Look, consumers are waiting for this. It is an opportunity for them to get the right deals, the right product, the right discount. They have been waiting to do this. So it's important that advertisers and brands and businesses meet consumers where they are. So first of all, get super excited. This is going to be an amazing TED. And then from our perspective, I think there are three big products to focus on. The first is short form video, which we spoke about. The second is business messaging, which we think is a new emerging channel. Vietnam leads the way, but make that social connection through it. And then the last is the use of AI. We spoke about AI briefly, but the way it translates to a product is our Advantage Plus suite of products. So use those products and let the machine and AI find you the right audience at the right time so that everybody has the most festive, celebratory TED.
Yeah, and then I think maybe lastly, the important thing to remember is that in this country, if you win TED, you win the year.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Drew. And thank you to the audience for listening in, our sharing of insights for the TED 2026. You can read more in the report about Lunar New Year consumer behavior. It's available to download at the Decision Labs website. But other than that, I just wish you an early Chúc Mừng Năm Mới.
Don't forget that we're going to be sharing more such insights specific to SMBs at our webinar on November 18th. Scan the QR code, register, and join us. And in the meantime, Happy New Year.